Hey guys, you know what came out this year? The Resident Evil remake! Resident Evil.
Yes, that's right. I've decided that this, right here, right now, is going to be Resident Evil Month. A month to celebrate the zombies, the monsters, the zombies and monsters.
Zombies and monsters.
Zombies and monsters.
Zombies and monsters.
And bears, oh my.
A month to celebrate motherfucking Resident Evil, the classic survival horror franchise that single-handedly gave birth to everything we fear and love. Well, after ripping off Alone in the Dark, of course. But whatever.
And hey, what better way to start off Resident Evil Month than by reviewing the very first horror game I ever played, the Resident Evil remake. I love this game.
Once upon a time, Resident Evil on the PS1 was the scariest video game ever made. And once upon a time, the Resident Evil remake on the GameCube was the scariest video game ever made. A lot of people call this the best video game remake of all time. And I don't think I can disagree with that. In all honesty, I'm reluctant to even call it a remake. No, this game is too good. It's too polished, too scary. It definitely stands on its own. As far as I can recall, this was the first video game I ever truly mastered 100%, all on my own. Well, unless you count like Kirby's Dream Land 3, or Yoshi's Island, or Duck Hunt. And I should probably mention, the reason I want to make this video isn't really to talk about the HD remake that just came out. No, I just want to talk about the remake in general, and everything I love about it. The monsters, the mansion, the gameplay, the music, the design. This is a special game to me. A really special game. And when it comes to the original Resident Evil, well, it's not even in the same league as that one. Let's take a minute to remember the original, shall we?
What is this? Wow, what a mansion!
Richard, what happened?
Oh, Jill, this house is dangerous. There are terrible demons. Ouch!
You know, this game's voice acting isn't just bad. It's fascinatingly bad.
Jill, here's a lockpick. It might be handy if you, the master of unlocking, take it with you.
He did the best he could, I guess. I mean, if I were the voice actor for Barry, I don't think I would have said that line any better either.
You know, I didn't know Jill was the master of unlocking. When did this happen? Did she make the Book of World Records or something? Anyway, for those of you who don't know the story of Resident Evil 1, let me give you the rundown. Basically, in the fictional town of Raccoon City, a small rescue squad known as the STARS Bravo team mysteriously goes missing after investigating a series of bizarre murders in the Arklay Mountains. Resident Evil follows the story of their compatriots, Alpha Team, composed of Chris Redfield, a young, generic, heroic hero, Albert Wesker, an evil, cocky bastard in sunglasses, Jill Valentine, the master of unlocking, a few other people who don't really matter that much, and Barry Burton, the best character to ever be put in a video game.
I told you, don't worry. I'll just go and get some fresh air and be eaten by a monster.
I'm sorry, I'll stop with the Barry clips. And then, of course, we have the opening sequence. The original, live-action opening sequence.
Hey! Come here!
Tell me, what's your favorite part of this thing? Is it this part where Joseph Frost gets violently mauled by mutant dogs?
Joseph!
Or is it this part where Chris Redfield reaches out into the sky and yells,
No! Don't go!
Yeah, just stand there and do nothing. You guys are reacting perfectly to the situation. Okay, I should really stop showing the cutscenes now. Anyway, long story short, the STARS Alpha team is sent into the woods to investigate the disappearance of Bravo team and find out what went wrong. But instead of finding their comrades, they find a bunch of mutant zombified dogs. And it's then, while running for their lives, they suddenly just so happen to stumble upon a mansion. A big mansion. A big, spooky Spencer mansion. Full of zombies, monsters, dogs, puzzles, and evil that is very Resident. And as we all know, it's here that the game truly shines. See, Resident Evil may have been a silly game, with terrible cutscenes, god-awful characters, and hilariously wretched voice acting. But at its core, that's not really what the game was about. No, ironically, Resident Evil was a game about subtlety. A game about real, genuine horror. And the gameplay proves it. Once you get past the cheesy as hell intro cutscenes, Resident Evil stops fucking around and turns into a real horror game. It sets you loose in the Spencer Mansion, and it becomes very lonely and very eerie very quickly. Soon, the whole game is about tension, about building atmosphere and delivering suspense. The gameplay focuses mainly on caution. That's why they called it survival horror. You spend most of the game walking from place to place, picking up items, solving puzzles, and avoiding monsters that lurk in the shadows. The tight spaces and claustrophobic nature of the game are what really give it its edge. Because when you're exploring these corridors, and you encounter these monsters inside these corridors, you hardly have any room to run away. And you also have very little time to react. You have to be careful with where you choose to go, careful with how you choose to respond. You don't find a lot of ammo lying around, so you can't just kill every monster you see. You have to avoid some of them, conserve your bullets, and maintain your health pickups. This is what made Resident Evil so awesome. You see, Resident Evil was pretty much the first game to really put survival horror into the mainstream spotlight, to make it successful and appealing to a wider audience. But then, why was it so appealing? Why did people like Resident Evil back then so much more than games like Clock Tower, or Sweet Home, or Alone in the Dark? Was there a reason? Did Resident Evil have something these other games didn't have? Well, that's a tough question. I mean, I guess I could go into detail about the gameplay, how the game was marketed, how cinematic it was, and how the graphics on the PS1 might have had something to do with it. But in reality, we all know why Resident Evil was successful. We all know. And there are only two things I need to say: the mansion and the monsters.
I really have to stop doing this.
Yeah, this is what Resident Evil was all about. And this is what we remember most: exploring the big, mysterious mansion and facing all the crazy monsters lurking inside it. The monsters are what people really remember about this game. The shark monsters, the bug monsters, the hunters, the zombies, Yawn, the giant snake. Oh, and what about those chimera things? Those things were terrifying.
All personnel.
Jill, your head is gone. Another thing that's worth noting is that the game was big. Much bigger than Alone in the Dark, if I remember well enough. You don't just explore the mansion and beat the game. You explore the mansion, then the courtyard, then the house in the courtyard, then the shark tank, then a freaking underground cavern in the courtyard, and of course, an evil laboratory hidden in the basement, which is a thing that shows up in pretty much every Resident Evil game. And as for the mansion itself, you know, it's actually amazing just how important this setting is. I mean, here's the thing. Most horror games back in the day were about exploring spooky mansions. I mean, like, pretty much all of them. But Resident Evil was the game that mastered it. This is the Spooky Mansion game. The one Spooky Mansion game to rule all Spooky Mansion games. You can ask anyone who grew up with this game. This mansion was scary. It was freaking horrifying. There was a time when this mansion was probably the darkest, most foreboding place you could explore in a video game, bar none. With all its tight, dim-lit hallways, its cold, pale basement rooms, and of course all the terrible little jump scares hiding around every corner to make you scream. See, my point is, this game was scary. For its time. I mean, no, it's certainly not scary anymore. Hell no. It's aged so badly I can't help but just laugh at it every time I play it. And you could find a billion things wrong with this game, don't get me wrong, but there's no denying the impact that it had. This game scared the shit out of people when they were little kids. Including Cat Icarus.
Silent Hill may have rendered me too scared to go near it as a kid, but Resident Evil signified the moment where I overcame every one of my primeval gaming fears by finishing it, despite being scared stiff in the process.
Catty's scared of Resident Evil. Everyone laugh at him. But if there is one big problem with this game, aside from the dialogue and the obvious shitty control scheme, the problem is that it's aged badly. Resident Evil, like I said, is no longer scary. It's no longer absorbing, and it can't really be taken seriously now that it's so outdated.
And that's why we have the remake. This is where we start talking about it.
Oh my god, the Resident Evil remake! It's so good. It's so good. I don't even know what to say. It's just so good, I can't even stand it. Honestly, I don't even know why I'm making this video. I think I just wanted an excuse to ramble about the best fucking game ever made. Okay, wait. Hold it right there. This is not, by any means, the best game ever made. This isn't even the best horror game ever made. I mean, there's no denying the amazing work of art that is Silent Hill 2. In fact, Silent Hill 2 is probably the only game the Resident Evil remake matches up to. These two games, they're both so similar in how beautiful, creepy, and perfectly executed they are. They're two really polished games, and I love them for a lot of the same reasons. But I also love them for different reasons. Silent Hill 2, in my opinion, is better than Resident Evil. It's more intelligent, it's more artistic, and it's a lot more dark and meaningful in its subject matter. But I think Resident Evil, as a game, is more memorable. And if I had to say why, I would only have to say two things. The mansion and the monsters. Right from the beginning, when you start this game, you can tell Resident Evil is a dark, serious, embracive remake. There's no silly cutscene with live-action characters acting like idiots at the beginning. No, there's just effort. Real, stunning effort. Yeah, those dogs look fucking scary. And everything else looks scary too. When the characters finally make it through the woods and into the mansion, it's almost mind-blowing to see the effort and detail put into every inch of how it looks. The mansion is prettier, the atmosphere is scarier, and the monsters, oh god, the monsters. Apart from having better looking monsters than the original, the Resident Evil remake also has more monsters than the original. Aside from zombies, dogs, giant spiders, and mutant sharks, the remake has quite a few nightmares of its own. Take, for instance, the Crimson Heads. You know, the Crimson Heads may be the scariest monsters in Resident Evil history. They're up there with the Leech Man and the Regenerators from Resident Evil 4. See, any regular zombie you kill in the game can become a Crimson Head later on, if you don't dispose of its body. And the only way to dispose of its body is to blow its head off, or burn it up with kerosene, which you only have a very limited amount of. This gives the game a caution that's 10 times more potent than the original, because every time you kill a zombie, it's gonna stay there, and stay there. For hours. And if you don't hurry up and get rid of it soon, it's gonna get right back up. Another scary monster unique to the remake is Lisa Trevor, a moaning bulletproof abomination of hell with multiple faces attached to her body. Lisa Trevor is a monster that can't be killed. She's a lot like Nemesis from Resident Evil 3, but she's implemented in a much more subtle way. You only see Lisa about 3 different times throughout the game, and every time you do, it's the scariest thing ever. Oh, and that creepy sound she makes used to scare me to death when I was little. It still gets me every time I hear it. But let's get off the subject of monsters, because I could go on about that forever. And God, we have to save something for the top 10 Resi monsters, don't we? No, instead, let's talk about the mansion. The big mansion. The big, beautiful remake mansion. Because holy f***ing shit. The Resi Remake may be the single most beautiful looking game I've ever seen. I don't even know what to compare it to. Resident Evil 0? That's the only game that looks like it. And they're both so beautiful, I just can't handle it. And yes, I know the graphics are all pre-rendered. Everything's basically flat, with simple animations that wouldn't in the slightest sense be considered groundbreaking or cutting edge. But I don't know, there's something about this game that looks so different from other games. So much darker and more alive. Maybe it's just me. But, like, think of games like Amnesia: The Dark Descent. Every room in that game is kind of the same. Nothing looks or feels unique as you move from one place to another. But in Resident Evil, it's completely the opposite. Every room is different. Everything you see has a personality, a different shade or color that makes it feel, I don't know, real. The backgrounds move in different ways, the lighting effects are emotive and organic, and just I know. I spend a lot of time babbling about atmosphere on this channel, and I'm sure that gets annoying, but there is a reason for it. See, I think atmosphere, above all else, is my favorite element in gaming. My favorite thing about video games, period. It drives me insane. If a video game can evoke a powerful mood, a vibe, an emotion, or a feeling, just by painting a world, a small virtual world that I can gaze upon, get lost inside, and use to distract myself from reality, to disappear from existence and vanish off the face of the earth all at once, well, that's what fucking dreams are made of. And this game is good at it. Way too good at it. It hurts me, physically, because it's so good at it. You know why I like this game so much? It's because I'm biased about it. Incredibly biased. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the remake hasn't aged any better than the original. Maybe its graphics just look retro to most people. And maybe its gameplay is getting just as old and cruddy as any other classic Resident Evil. But me? I wouldn't be able to tell, because I'm biased. I grew up with this game. It was the first horror game I ever played, and it terrified me. I mean, just this mansion. This freaking mansion. I used to have nightmares about this mansion. I used to draw pictures of it when I was a little kid. I was obsessed with this mansion. It's always been my favorite setting of any game I've ever played. Well, sort of anyway. I guess it's kind of up there with Oddworld and Silent Hill, and maybe the dreams of Madatsuki. This mansion is a place I return to. A place I could revisit again and again and again. And that's all I have to say. Seriously, I can't think of anything else. This game is my childhood. That's all there is to it. I can't review Resident Evil from an open-minded perspective. I just can't. I'm in love with this game. I'll always be in love with it. It's just an epic reimagining. The kind of thing that could only have happened once. It's a Resident Evil game, but it's executed with the darkness and passion of a Silent Hill game. And that makes it pretty unique. Honestly, it doesn't even feel like this game came from the cold, money-grubbing offices of modern-day Capcom. It doesn't even feel like it was made by a big AAA developer. It just feels different. Maybe this game is why I am the way I am on YouTube. Maybe this, growing up with Resident Evil so early in my life, is the reason I crave dark, haunting games fueled by exploration. I mean, that's what I love. Those are my favorite kind of games. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but regardless, Resident Evil 2002 will always be my friend.
I'm sorry, I'm just crying. Because this game is so good. So good.
Oh, also, Resident Evil Month is not a yearly thing. Resident Evil Month is only this year. Also, Resident Evil Month reserves the right to go on as long as it wants. Because you know me. I'm a YouTuber. And when I say the word month, I probably don't mean it. Hey, thanks for watching my Resident Evil review. If you're interested in more Resident Evil, stay tuned, because I've got quite a few videos planned ahead. But right now, I'd like to thank my 4 top Patreon supporters: WanderGirl108, Jose Garcia, Kira Dude, and Nathan Stapleton. You guys are incredibly generous, and you're helping me out so much. I'm literally inches from being able to do this part-time. I pour pretty much all the hours of my free time into Jordan Underneath, and it really means a lot that you guys want more of it. Not just you 4, but all of you watching. So thank you.
Yeah.